The following program, Live and Learn, is made possible by Aging Partners. Find out more on their website at agingpartners@lincoln.ne.gov.
Hi, I'm Lita Powell-Drake, and today with us, Andy Park, the director of the Nebraska Repertory Theater, is going to be here with us, and we're going to see a wonderful, wonderful show. Stay with us.
Hello, I'm Jerry Renaud. Today on Live and Learn, we have a very special guest who is here to tell us a wonderful story of triumph and a great part of Nebraska's history. It's the Executive Director of the Nebraska Commission on Indian Affairs, Judy Goshkobosh. She'll be here to talk to us about a wonderful celebration and a new statue of Chief Standing Bear. You won't want to miss it.
Welcome to Live and Learn. Today we're going to be talking about the importance of dental health and keeping you smiling throughout your lifetime. Stay with us.
Welcome to Live and Learn. I'm Kristen Stowes, and there is a puzzle in all of our lives, retirement. Today, we are going to look at the financial piece of this puzzle as I welcome Samantha Eckhart, Certified Financial Planner. Please stay with us.
This and more on today's Live and Learn.
Happy holidays. I'm Lita Powell-Drake, and with us today is Andy Park. He's the director of the Nebraska Repertory Theater, and they're doing a holiday cabaret. Welcome to Live and Learn, my dear.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it.
And explain what a cabaret is for those who don't know.
Yeah, well, a cabaret, typically they happen in nightclubs or in theaters. There's usually some libations that are going on, as well as a lot of songs.
Libations?
Oh, yeah.
Soothing libations?
Oh, definitely soothing libations. So, yeah, there will be a bar, there will be table service so that people can just have a really great time listening to some tremendous singers that we have, that will be doing a variety of holiday songs. And we also have some comedy, and it should be a really fun night.
Well, now, you're new to Nebraska, and we welcome you here.
Thank you.
And you've had a lot of experience already in the theater. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I've been doing theater since I was a kid. I started as a kid actor, and then I sort of fell into directing. So I've been an artistic director of a showboat in Ohio. I ran a Chinese circus for a number of years, and then
Chinese circus.
Yeah,
yeah. Ni hao.
Yeah.
Ni hao ma.
Thankfully, I had translators because that's a really hard language there.
Oh, yes, it is.
Yeah, and then after the Chinese circus, I opened up a theater company in Chicago that I ran for 15 years called Quest Theater Ensemble. And then the last job I had in Chicago was artistic director for Shedd Aquarium, so directing the marine mammal shows.
Well, we welcome you to Nebraska and are looking forward to some very exciting shows. We've already had some that are really, wow!
Yeah.
So this guy's got something very special. Now, you're bringing in a group from Chicago, the Lakeshore Dolls. Who are they?
The Lakeshore Dolls are kind of a throwback type of singing group. So it's a female trio. They sing in the spirit of the Andrews Sisters. In fact, I'm certain that they'll do some Andrews Sister songs during the show. And so they're going to do a few sets. Their harmonies are really tight, and they're just a tremendous group. They perform all over the place, and they're going to bring a lot of excitement to the show.
Well, how do you know these people so that you can say, come to Nebraska?
I've employed them in a few other venues and shows, and they always bring down the house. So I'm really confident people are going to absolutely love them. So I'm really excited to bring them. They're really excited to come. So they'll fly here, they'll do 5 shows, and then they'll head back to Chicago to their next gig.
They probably better wear those heavy clothing that they had on there, though.
Yeah,
yeah. You never know about Nebraska.
Yeah.
Now, you are a puppeteer in addition to director and all the other things that you do. Tell us about your puppeteering, and let's see a little sample, if you'll be so kind, Andy Park.
Yeah, sure. All right, well, here, I brought a puppet with me today.
Now, who is this? Who is this puppet?
All right, let me get him here.
Okay.
Hello, Lita.
Hello, what is your name?
Well,
It's Bobby.
that's right.
Oh, Bobby,
Oh,
can I
yes.
call you Bob?
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
thank you
As long as you call me.
Very much. Now, do you create the puppet yourself? Do you build it?
I did not build Bobby, but I have built plenty of puppets in the past, you know, a lot of different kinds. In fact, later this year, we're going to be doing a show that features a lot of puppetry. We're doing Avenue Q.
That's right, and it's going to be a wonderful show.
Well, how do you show us how you actually operate a
Yeah,
puppet?
so-
Many of us don't know how to do
Yeah,
that.
sure. So what I do is I use my hand here to sort of support his feet, and this way I can control his arm right here. And then if you look in the back here, you can see that basically you just stick your hand right up his backside here. All right, and then you know you start practicing on matching the syllables so that you can make him talk.
Well, how do you project his voice?
So I'm a ventriloquist. Yeah, and so and I've been doing it for a long time. And so the simplest way is that you really practice trying to talk without moving your lips. And so that's what I've worked on with him. So and he can sing songs, he can tell jokes, all of that. So.
I like you, Bobby.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, may I shake my hand? Oh, isn't that sweet? That's my Christmas present from you, Bobby, right?
That's right. That's all you're going to get.
Okay, oh, thanks a lot. How big is the cast?
The cast is about 14 people, and we also have a live band. And so we wanted to get excellent musicians, and we have. So we'll have piano, bass, and drums, and so they'll be playing throughout the night. And then we're featuring about 14 different performers, local performers, emerging talent. It's going to be quite a show.
And we're going to share some music with you today from, what do you officially call this group?
Well, these are actually performers from the Holiday Cabaret, and they're going to come forward and they're going to sing Bright Morning Stars.
And this is an old song from Appalachia. Let's listen to them now.
Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Breaking in my soul. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a-breaking in my soul. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Bright morning stars are rising. Day is a-breaking in my soul.
And that was Bright Morning Star, an old song from Appalachia. Beautiful. Who are those kids?
Yeah, you know, all of them are individually performing in the Holiday Cabaret, and they're all just tremendous talent. And many of them are going to be featured in shows that we're doing, not only the Holiday Cabaret, but next semester as well.
And you've got big shows coming up for 2018, starting with Avenue Q.
Oh yeah, Avenue Q, it is so funny. It features full frontal puppet nudity. So yeah,
Whoa.
it's something
They don't
that
look
you
very nude to me.
Yeah, well, you have to come to the show to see that.
Okay.
All right, but yeah, it's a really fun show, and it won numerous Tony Awards. It's going to be tremendous.
And also the Reps Rising Stars. These are the young kids coming up?
Yeah, these are the emerging artists that are coming through the theater program. They are absolutely remarkably talented.
She looks frightened.
I think it's all the sparkles that are falling from the ceiling. That's just my guess. But yeah, that's going to be a really special day as well, to sort of see some of the best that's coming out of the theater program.
Yes, and there's another special one coming up too.
Oh yeah, the very last one is Lord of the Flies.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Lord of the Flies. It's a classic. And we have a really exceptional guest director who's coming to direct it, and so we're really excited about Lord of the Flies.
I think most of us read that book sometime. I think, in fact, I think it was required reading in some of the public schools.
It is, and so we're hoping to actually have some school groups coming in to see the show during the day as well.
And so if you folks at home haven't ever read Lord of the Flies, that's something very special, and so I hope you will do that. Okay, the Holiday Cabaret is coming up. We'll give you the details on the screen so you can jot it down because you don't want to miss this one. It's the Holiday Cabaret running December 13th through the 17th at the University Theater in the Temple Building, located right there at 12th and R Street. Now, you can get your tickets by calling the Lead Center. It is not at the Lead Center. It's across the street at the Temple Building, which has been there since the turn of the last century, where I got graduated, and that's a very special place in my heart. But call the Lead Center. There is the Temple Building. You've seen that with those beautiful, there's 8 columns, I think, all around the building, and all restored thanks to Johnny Carson and his generosity. So the tickets again, if you want to call the Lead Center, that number is 402-472-4747. So it's always easy to remember. And our thanks to you, and welcome to Nebraska.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk to you.
Andy Park, who is the new director of the Repertory Theater, with some very exciting things to come. So I hope you will be joining us. And remember, it's never too late to live and learn more about the University of Nebraska Repertory Theater right here in Lincoln.
Hello and welcome to Live and Learn. I'm your host, Jerry Renaud. Today we want to talk about a very special event that occurred not only in Nebraska recently, but one that occurred about 150 years ago that really made such a major difference in our country and for Native people. And we have a very special guest who is with us to talk about that today, and one of my favorite people in the world. Judy Goshkobosh is here. She is, amongst many other things, the executive director of the Nebraska Commission on Indian Affairs. I want to make sure I get that out and get that right. So thank you
Thanks,
for being
Jerry.
here.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Not only are you working for the state and doing those kinds of things, but you've been involved in helping Native people for a long time, not only with your tribe, the Ponca, but also in working with some projects at the university, working with Native folks down in Oklahoma, in doing any number of things. Tell us a little bit about how you decided to sort of dedicate your life to this really worthwhile pursuit of helping Native people.
Okay, well, I think it goes back to my ancestors. I descend from Chief Smokemaker, not Chief Standing Bear, but he was a colleague chief of Standing Bear. And my grandfather was born in 1878. He was the last chief of the second rank of the Ponca tribe prior to our tribe's termination. My mother went to the Genoa Indian School as a child, and that was a school, one of the boarding schools, to kill the Indian and save the man. She went back to the reservation and she became a tribal leader when dominant society, women weren't doing such things. So I attribute what I do today to the legacy of my ancestors. And in our culture, we believe that what we do, we stand on the shoulders of our relatives. And I'm so pleased that I could do something that would honor them. And then looking forward, 7 generations forward, what we do today impacts those. So now today, when I started in my position in 1995, right before that, I worked for the Ponca tribe. And our tribe was one of the tribes in America that was terminated, and we were restored in 1990.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. And let's talk about that, because that's, I'm not sure a lot of people know that sort of history of the Ponca.
Well, the Ponca tribe, we were a small, peaceful tribe up along the Niobrara, and it was just one of those things that for termination in America, I think it was at the time in the 50s, under President Eisenhower, that there was an effort to free the government of their federal trust responsibilities. So we were one of the many tribes that happened to. So we were terminated in 62, formally in 66, and then we realized that it was a huge negative impact to our people. Economically, culturally, our language, we lost so much. So the federal government had a process where you could become restored. So we went through that difficult process and we were restored in 1990, but we were prohibited from having a land base. So we're a landless tribe in essence, but we were restored with service areas throughout the state. And so when I started to work for the tribe, well, I think it was in 1993, I was the NAGPRA director. And in 1990, Congress passed the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act. That coincided with our tribe being restored. And we had human remains at different institutions,
Right.
the university. And so I was a single mother with 2 daughters, going to college at Doane College then, and now it's Doane University, and working for my tribe as the first repatriation director. So I was involved in some contentious battles with the university on behalf of our sacred ancestors.
I remember.
Yes,
I was
and
there at the
so
time.
I survived those battles, and the opportunity came to be the director of the Indian Commission, and I felt like that was something that I wanted to dedicate my life to. And so I simultaneously continued to go to college and receive my master's at Doane University, and now I'm a Doane trustee.
Wonderful.
And in the course of working for the Indian Commission, I've just really been blessed to work for all Indian people, not just the Ponca tribe, but for all Indian people. And that's very gratifying.
Yeah, and you do a fabulous job. Let's talk about one of the really famous members of the Ponca tribe, and that's Chief Standing Bear. Just in case people don't really know this story, before we talk about, because what we really want to talk about is the very formal celebration that was held recently with a monument and a statue to Standing Bear down on the university campus. But give us the brief history of Standing Bear and why it's important.
It is amazing that so many people don't still know the story. I think oftentimes that everybody should know the story,
Right.
but every day I meet someone that doesn't know the story. So going back in 1877, our tribe was forcibly removed to Oklahoma. With bayonets at our back, we walked all the way to Oklahoma, to a new land, to free up some space and lands for warring tribes, the Sioux, and to allow for our lands to be developed by those that were coming, the new immigrants. Well, while down there, Standing Bear, really an ordinary chief in some ways, but he did something extraordinary, I believe. That's why this story is so important. Many of the Trail of Tears were a one-way story. Ours wasn't. Standing Bear got to go home. And why did he get to go home? Because he was such a brave, honorable, courageous person that honored his word. On his son Bear Shield's dying bed, he was 16 years old, his only son, who was going to carry on for his father. Bear Shield knew he was dying, and he asked his father to take him home and bury him where his ancestors were buried. So Standing Bear did that with a small group of people. he turned around and walked back another 500 miles. That's pretty brave in the dead of winter. He was arrested at Fort Omaha, and then there was the trial where Standing Bear and Native people all in the whole of America were recognized that we were humans, we were persons under the law. And so that's why that story is so important. So back in 1995, when I began my job as a director of the Indian Commission, the first evidence of Standing Bear were the murals. They're one of the 8 murals up on the top floor by Steve Roberts was Standing Bear. So I worked with Steve on that, and then there was just this process that happened. Others became inspired by the story. It wasn't that I went around and said, please write this story. My friend Joe Starita came to me and said, do you think this is a story that should be told? Well, of course, I thought it should be. Yeah. And then Christine Layshock with Nebraska Educational Television, she did the documentary that coincided with Joe's book, Standing Bear's Footsteps. A children's book was written, Standing Bear of the Ponca, by Native Virginia Driving Hawks Navy.
Yeah, it's an incredible story, and it's wonderful that there's so much information out there. Before we run out of time, let's make sure that we talk about the ceremony that was held again recently, where a statue of Standing Bear was dedicated. I think we have a video of some of the events that took place on that Sunday afternoon.
It is fitting that this dedication is one of many signature events across Nebraska this year, in celebration of our state's 150th anniversary.
Chief Standing Bear and his story, it is a big picture thing. It works on so many levels. You've got the idea and in the story of him keeping a promise to his son, keeping a promise to his people.
It is sad that it took 150 years, but I will tell you that the job of state senator has been both educational and in some ways shocking, because it has been a process of understanding that many of our issues are oblivious to the population of Nebraska.
The story of Standing Bear and the Ponca is indeed a story of hardship and unfairness and injustice. It's also a story of love and compassion.
We're adding an incredible jewel to the scene, this monumental statue of Standing Bear.
And there you see the statue that is on the mall right outside the College of Journalism and Mass Communications. It's just fabulous. Judy, tell us a little bit about how this all came about, a little bit about the donor and the artist.
Okay, 5 years ago I met Don Miller Campbell. He's from the retail Miller and Payne family and the cinnamon roll family. So all my life growing up eating cinnamon rolls, did I ever dream that this man would have such a big impact on my work. But he was a trustee at Doane. He learned about Native people through the Native Daughters magazines and through just our conversations. 3 years ago at Thanksgiving, he sent me an email. He was in Santa Fe, seeing all these beautiful Native sculptures down in Santa Fe, and he said, Judy, how would you like to have a bronze memorial of Standing Bear in Lincoln, Nebraska? And I would love to fund that. Well, of course, that was my Thanksgiving gift, and I said, absolutely, Don, thank you so much. So 3 years later, we went through a lot of phone calls, emails, meetings to select the artist, Ben Victor. We were helped by George Newbert, and George used to be the director of the Sheldon. George knew about the great work of Ben in the Statutory Hall and what he'd done down in Peru at Peru State College. So it wasn't too lengthy of a process that we honed in and said, this is the man, he is so awesome. So Don, our donor, who is so generous and so wonderful, flew us over to Boise to see Ben Victor's studio, and we were just really totally convinced that he was the right person, and he's so humble, and he's embraced the story, and he loves the story. It's just been a pleasure to work with Don Miller Campbell and Ben Victor. They are really my heroes, and I think for many, many years to come, since Sunday when we had the dedication, I've driven by there and I see people gathered. Yesterday I went over there and I saw so many people getting their pictures taken. So I think it really is going to become what we had envisioned and hoped for, that Nebraskans will come and learn this story and they'll be inspired to be Standing Bear strong. That's what I think of every day when I wake up in the morning. I think things are rough. No, think of Standing Bear walking 500 miles. So I dedicate my work to the future generations and to Standing Bear.
Yeah, it's a wonderfully peaceful place. If we really want to encourage people to come down there, there are nice little tables around, or you can just look at the statue. There are any number of quotations that are there about Native people. It's just it's a really a wonderful spot. We do want to remind people that this is being taped, so it was in the past a few weeks ago that this happened, but at any rate, it's a wonderful place, and we encourage people to come on down. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. I wish we had more time. Come back and see us again.
I would love to.
Thank you,
Jerry.
Judy Goshkobosh. And thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate it very much. And always remember, it's never too late to live and learn.
Are you 55 or older, low income, and need a job? The Senior Community Service Employment Program offers employment assistance to low-income Nebraskans age 55 and older, offering paid training at local organizations to update your job skills and build confidence, while preparing skilled, experienced, and responsible older workers for today's workforce. The program also helps local agencies increase their services and operations.
Hi everyone. Dental health is an often neglected or forgotten part of the healthcare equation. My name's Kim Hachia, and welcome to Live and Learn. Today my guest is Gwendy McGinnis. She's Manager of Dental Health and Nutrition Services for the Lincoln and Lancaster County Health Department. We're here to talk about the importance of oral health, particularly for seniors, and the resources that are available in Lincoln and Lancaster County. Gwendy, thanks for coming and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks. So, Gwendy, why are seniors among the more at-risk population for problems with oral health?
Well, first of all, we have a growing number of older adults with the baby boomers retiring, and many of them will no longer have dental insurance through an employer or a spouse's employer, and Medicare doesn't provide dental services. Also, we see in our older adults, many of them have what we call co-conditions or multiple health conditions, and therefore on multiple medications that can have an impact on their oral health, placing them at greater risk for tooth decay. And many of them may have cognitive or sensory kinds of things that make it impossible for them to fully take care of their oral health needs.
And so I'm imagining also that they might have conditions like diabetes or prescriptions that might affect some of those issues, right?
Yes, often there's, with chronic conditions and medications that they're taking for those, they can have side effects. And one of the side effects that can place them at greater risk for tooth decay is having dry mouth. And also, they can often have pain that makes it very difficult for them to eat, and therefore they're not taking in the appropriate kinds of things for nutrition that also makes it essential for their overall health and well-being.
I think we have a graphic that talks about some of the problems we might associate with poor oral health. And I think that this is not just for older people, but people in general. But why don't we talk about what some of these things are? You talked a little bit about dry mouth. Can you kind of define what that is? I think we all kind of know, but what is a dry mouth, and what could be the cause, and why is that a problem?
Well, first of all, within the aging process, dry mouth is when you don't have the salivary flow that you have, the saliva in your mouth. And saliva is kind of a self-cleansing mechanism when we're eating foods and those kinds of things. And just the aging process in itself can slow that down, but also a lot of the chronic conditions and the meds we take, or if they're having cancer therapy, can decrease that salivary flow, and that in itself then can place individuals at a greater risk for tooth decaries. They don't have that natural cleansing mechanism. And sometimes with dry mouth, we'll see older adults that may, in order to increase that salivary flow, they may suck on hard candy and those kinds of things, again, that contribute to poor oral health.
So rather than sucking on peppermint, you'd rather they just drink water?
To drink more water, limit their caffeine intake. Certainly there are some things that a dental health provider can provide them in terms of prescriptions and those kinds of things that can increase that salivary flow.
And so the graphic also showed that some of the problems were pain, tooth decay, social isolation. You want to talk about some of those other things too?
Certainly. With tooth decay, periodontal disease, which is an inflammation of the gums, they can have added pain, and therefore, if you've ever had a toothache, you don't eat, you also don't sleep, and again, that goes, with your overall health and well-being. Also, people with poor oral health, if they're not able to take care of their dental needs, they become embarrassed, and that can socially isolate them as well. And we also want to make sure that clients are being screened for oral cancer. The other thing is there's a lot of research that connects poor oral health to chronic disease. So if you have poor oral health, it can place you at a greater risk for heart attacks, strokes. Also, if those are the conditions that we often see in the aging population, if they have already, then having inflammation or infection in their mouth can make those conditions worse. Diabetes is a great example. If you have poor oral health and you have diabetes, you can struggle with then managing your diabetes because of your oral health, the inflammation that you have present. But also having diabetes places you at a greater risk for periodontal disease, that inflammation or infection in the mouth. So it becomes kind of a vicious cycle. So it is really important that older adults get to their health providers and they have them help them in helping manage their oral health and better so they're able to manage their chronic diseases.
So you talked about how people perhaps that have retired or have lost their dental insurance, maybe they haven't gone to the dentist in a while. How can your agency help somebody in that situation who maybe doesn't have the insurance, doesn't have the financial wherewithal to continue that long-standing dental relationship or dental home, I guess is what you like to call
First of all, at the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department, we have a dental clinic, and it serves uninsured individuals, low-income uninsured individuals, for urgent, preventative, and routine care. But there's also, we have a lot of other partnerships in the community and resources that we refer to partnering agencies and they refer to us. And so, for example, there's People's Health Center, and they also operate on a sliding fee scale based on income. And we have the College of Dentistry that we've had a long collaborative history. And they also offer some services on, first of all, their fees are reduced because they're an academic institution, but they also have an outreach program where they're trying to work with the uninsured on some reduced fees as well.
And then Clinic with a Heart, do you work with them?
Yes, we do. We actually, some of the partners that I just mentioned, including Clinic with a Heart. We have some community grant resources that we partner with these agencies as well. And Clinic with a Heart is a part of that. It's a grant called the Dental Home Initiative, funded through the Community Health Endowment. And it's us, it's People's Health Centers, the College of Dentistry, Clinic with a Heart. We even have some local providers who participate in that. And this grant provides for low-income uninsured the ability to access a dental home where the grant's paying for a portion of their dental services, and then the patient is paying for a portion. We also have another grant opportunity called the Minority Health Initiative. It's grant dollars through the state's Office of Minority Health. And it's a group, it involves our cultural centers, El Centro, Malone, Good Neighbor Center, Asian Center, the Ponca Tribe, us again, People's Health Center, and the College of Dentistry that we partner. It's a chronic disease prevention program that focuses on diabetes and cardiovascular disease screenings and prevention, but it also has a dental health component, recognizing that dental health is critical in managing these diseases. So that we have some great community resources that I hope people will explore and take advantage of.
And then do you, at your facility on N Street, can you get actual care there?
Yes, we can. We have dentists and dental hygienists on staff that are treating our clients in our clinic. All of our dentists, they are in private practice, but we contract them for certain days of the week and hours to come in and treat our clients.
So somebody says, well, I have dentures, I don't have teeth anymore, so I don't have to worry about this, so this doesn't affect me. Is that a myth?
That's a myth. People still should see their dental provider, and that dental provider will identify, a time frame that they should come in regularly. First of all, their oral cancer screenings, because they could have oral cancer developing under their denture. Also, with time, dentures become ill-fitting, and the dentist then can apply some bases to make those dentures better fitting, because with the processes, once you take out the teeth, the bones and tissues start changing, gradually deteriorating, and ill-fitting dentures can cause, sores of the gum underneath, and again, impacting someone's ability to eat with their dentures. But chronic irritation to the gums can also predispose you to oral cancer.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. If you're like a caretaker for an older person who's having difficulty managing their own personal oral care, are there helpful situations that you guys would provide to show people how to do that, or how does that work?
We have all kinds of aids that we will assess the patient's needs and look at what they're struggling with, that we can help them adapt. For example, they may be using a manual toothbrush, but now the electric toothbrushes, they have a fatter grip, or we can even adapt their manual toothbrush by putting it in a tennis ball, inserting it into a tennis ball that allows them to grip. We have all kinds of floss holders as aids, and little brushes that can get under bridges and between teeth. So it's really important then that the older adult sees their dental professional, and then they will work with an individualized plan for that patient.
So if somebody was interested in this, they're watching our show and they see this and they think, wow, this is interesting. How do they get hooked up with you?
Well, first of all, we see referrals from physicians in their community, from other dentists, from other care providers. But they can go to the City of Lincoln's website, which is www.lincoln.ne.gov, and just search health, and that will pull up the health department. And when you pull up the health department, you'll see our division listed as Dental Health and Nutrition Services. So they can call us, they can be a self-referral. But then also, when that client comes in, it's not necessarily just about us treating them. They may have some specialty care needs. They may need new dentures, those kinds of things. And we will work with them in matching them to community resources that can help, hopefully help them better access those kinds of things.
Gwendy, I know that you were in Gwendy 1.0, you were a dental hygienist. And so this is obviously a a passion for you, people's good oral health, because that's why people become hygienists. And they're, interested in making sure that people can, manage that through their lifetime. So I think that's an interesting thing. So I'm glad that you agreed to come on the show today and talk about this important issue, because I think it's something that you don't really think about for older people, but it is, oral health is clearly important for somebody's entire lifetime, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So great. Well, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Gwendy McGinnis, who heads up dental and nutrition services for the Lincoln Lancaster County Health Department. And her goal is to keep people smiling throughout their life. And that's a good way to remember that it's never too late to live and learn.
Legal services are a part of the spectrum of senior services available through our 8 area agencies on aging. Attorneys can assist and educate seniors on consumer credit and debt collection issues, as well as help them plan ahead with advance directives. Attorneys can also help seniors with consumer fraud and financial exploitation concerns, and also guide them through government benefit issues. For more information, contact the Elder Access Line at 800-527-7249.
There are many pieces of the retirement puzzle to consider. I'm Kristen Stoes, and today we will examine the financial piece of this puzzle as I welcome Samantha Eckert, Certified Financial Planner. Samantha, thank you for being on Live and Learn, and you like to go by Sam, correct?
That's correct, and thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome. So tell us, how long have you been in the financial planning arena?
I have been with Union Bank now for 13 years and received my Certified Financial Planning designation in 2010. So for the last 7 years, I've really focused on planning.
Okay, wonderful. Is it safe to say that many of us are unprepared to retire financially, or at least we should be considering those years more seriously?
Well, Kristen, fortunately, I work with individuals day to day that are closely prepared or well prepared for retirement.
Okay.
However, the national statistics are startling. According to an Economic Policy Institute report, nearly half of Americans have saved nothing for retirement.
Ooh.
And when we're looking at the baby boomers, those age 56 to 61, the national average that people have saved is around $163,000, but when you look at the median, it's really only around $17,000. So yes, it's more important now than ever. In the past, many companies had funded pensions for their employees, and pensions are really few and far between anymore. Most companies have either frozen them or not participating in them anymore. So it's really up to the participant or the employee to be saving for themselves.
Okay, all right. Those statistics are kind of eye-opening,
yes,
though. Yes. We all like simple answers to complicated questions. Is there a formula to use to try to address the financial piece of this retirement puzzle?
Sure. I do truly believe that the amount needed to sustain a comfortable retirement is really different for everyone.
Sure.
It really depends on what your goals for retirement are. For example, if there's an individual who would like to travel, they're going to need more money than someone with more modest goals. However, I do understand that it can be useful to look at some basic guidelines.
Okay.
So one rule of thumb is to have accumulated 7 times your income by age 55 or 10 times by age 67.
Okay.
Or another thing you can look at is if you're very close to retirement and you know what you have saved or you know what your nest egg is, and you're wondering what you can spend for those dollars to last you. The 4% rule is another common rule of thumb, and what that means is that you would spend 4% of your savings on an annual basis. Because that means that you should be able to earn 4% on your dollars where you wouldn't be spending your principal down.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And so when you're talking about your income, you're meaning the annual income when you were explaining those first two?
Yes. So when at age 55, you look at what you're making that year, and looking at having 7 times that saved.
Okay, all right. I think a guideline is kind of a
Yes.
nice place to start to give you an idea.
Yes,
Yes,
agreed.
yes. So when you assist your clients, you said that it is important to find out what their goals are, what they hope their retirement should look like. And I believe we have a graphic to put on screen, and we will start talking about that.
Sure, I think that this is very important. Most of the time when clients come to me, they right away know what age they plan to retire, whether
Okay.
that be retire early at age 60 or 65 when they can receive Medicare, or maybe age 66 to 67 when they reach full retirement age. And that's a great first step. We do want to know what age, but it's important to also go beyond that and think about what you want your retirement to look like. What do you plan to do? You're going to have more downtime, so what are you going to do with that time? Because oftentimes, especially if you plan to retire early, those things you want to do cost money.
Okay.
And oftentimes they're in excess of what you're already spending on an annual basis.
I see.
So it is important to not only know the age, but think about what you want your retirement to look like.
Do you ever have clients that say, gee, I haven't thought about that?
All the time.
Yes.
And I think it's important because, you know, like I said, especially if you're retiring early, you have a lot more years that you need your dollars to work for you. And that's really important that you're including that in your plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. Your retirement years can be so happy, but they really do have to be planned for.
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
I understand. So then after you know what you'd like to be able to do in retirement, you need to figure out what is realistic for you to be able to do in retirement by looking at 3 areas. Another graphic we have that we will be talking about, knowing your expenses is certainly an important consideration, and I like the simple way you suggested for someone to estimate their annual expenses. Talk about that a little.
Yes. Yeah, the next step is to figure out, once you have those goals, what your retirement's going to cost. So expenses is really the most important piece of the financial plan, because I could tell just about anyone they can retire, but it all depends on what you want to spend. So with monthly living expenses, this is also something that a lot of people have no clue as to
Okay.
what they spend on an annual basis. So a simple way to do this or to figure it out is to go back and look at your bank statements for the last 12 months and add up what you spent. Divide that by 12, and that gives you an idea of a good starting point for your monthly expenses. And I like that rather than just starting to write down, because when you do go write down those items, you typically know the utilities or the fixed expenses every month, but it's those miscellaneous expenses for clothing or entertainment or food, travel, those types of things that people forget
tend to
about.
overlook.
You overlook those, and those are the areas that really do add up.
Is this a good time to remember the inflation factor as well?
Absolutely. So once we get that number, I typically assume that if someone's close to retirement, so if they're 5 to 10 years out, meaning they probably don't have children at home anymore, or they're not supporting other individuals besides themselves, once we figure out what that number is that takes them to live, I usually use that same number in retirement, and then I include inflation every year. Right now I'm using 3% for inflation, so I have that dollar amount go up by 3% every year of retirement.
That would be an easy piece to forget as well, I
Yes,
think.
agreed.
So then again, we have to think about the age that the client is
Yep.
retiring.
Yep, and most people, like I said, that's the first thing they know. That's the easy one, what age they plan to retire. But some people get stuck on, well, I have to wait till full retirement age to get my Social Security, and that may not be the case. So when you're planning, it's good to put down what you really hope to or what your goal is, and it might have to be adjusted later.
All right. And then the last little piece at this point would be your life expectancy, which really is an unknown. So how do you handle that?
Yes, and this is an important one too. Typically when I'm doing planning for a client, I use either 90 to 95 for my life expectancy.
Okay.
I don't ever go below that because, like you said, we have no clue how long we're going to live. And I'd rather plan for that longevity than not, because that's really one of the biggest downfalls in retirement planning in today's world. We're living a lot longer than we thought we would, and not necessarily a lot healthier. So we're being kept alive by expensive
Yes.
medical procedures or pills and so forth. So it is important to plan for that longevity.
Okay, that makes a good deal of sense. Is this a good time also to consider the legacy you might like to leave for your children or your grandchildren or to a community cause?
Yes, all of the planning I do is based on goals. So not only when you want to retire, but what your other goals in retirement are. So those could be charitable contributions that you plan to give or leaving a legacy, as you mentioned.
Okay. Is it a fallacy, Sam, that people think they will spend less in their retirement than they have before retirement?
You know, I do think that people often assume they're going to spend less in retirement, and I don't usually see that as the case. That's why when I'm doing planning for an individual, I assume they're going to spend what they're spending today in retirement, because most people don't spend less, especially those first 5 to 10 years, because they're not working. They have an extra 40, 50 hours a week to do things that they want to do. Yes, there may be some years in between, you know, in 80s where they're not going out as much or doing as many things, but then often later in the life we have healthcare costs that kick
It's
in.
really more of a reallocation of all of the funds,
Absolutely.
right? Yes, sure.
And I would rather be conservative when planning for expenses,
Yes.
because you can always reduce those, but it's hard
Yeah.
to increase them.
That is very true. So now that the expenses have been tallied, then the expected retirement income needs to be assessed. And I guess Social Security would be the place to start there for
Yes.
one piece.
Yes, you're exactly right. So now that we know what you need to retire on, we need to make sure that it's realistic based on the income and the assets that the individual has. When we think of income, some people might have a pension, but for most people, Social Security is going to be the only income or guaranteed income source that they'll have in retirement. But other things that they may have as far as income could be rental properties or farm income, or sometimes in retirement, they might retire from their career, but they might get a part-time job, so there may be some supplemental income to consider as well.
I see.
But typically, the income, because it's usually just the Social Security, it may not be enough for the individual to live off or to reach those goals that they have in retirement. So then that's when we need to consider the other assets that they have,
All right.
and at what rate those are going to have to kick in to support that lifestyle.
Do many people keep working after retirement to supplement that income some?
You know, I do see that. I would say probably the majority don't.
Okay.
And oftentimes, the individuals I see going back to work, it's not necessarily for the income, although that's a nice piece of it, but it's just to keep busy and for
Yes,
something
sure.
for them to do.
A change of pace.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so then both sides of the balance sheet are known, and if the reality version looks different than the hoped for retirement version, then very briefly, what could be done to help that?
Sure. Well, if your retirement goals aren't met by the analysis that you've done this far, really the options that you have is to increase your savings, decrease your spending, delay retirement, or typically it's a mixture of all of the above.
All right. Do you see people delaying retirement more and more now? Or?
Yes, we have a lot. Really, the biggest piece of the puzzle that's stopping people from retirement, or at least earlier, is healthcare. Healthcare is kind of an unknown right now, and it's quite expensive. So we see a lot of people who hope to maybe retire at 62 that are waiting till 65.
All right, that makes sense. Do you have a recommendation for someone who has not saved routinely during their lifetime and is looking at retirement, say in the next 5 to 10 years? What can they do?
Well, start saving more.
Okay. Yep.
But definitely, I think evaluating those expenses is very, very important. Figure out where you can cut back, or at least figure out what you're spending. Because if you don't know that, it's going to be really hard to figure out where you need to be or how you're going to get where you're going.
Absolutely, absolutely. We will be displaying on screen the Aging Partners contact information for our viewers if they need help in determining these expenses. Aging Partners can help those age 60 and over with financial counseling, so there definitely is help to be had, and that's a good thing. Do you have one last word of encouragement to offer our viewers that might initiate them to take that step to start looking at the finances of their retirement?
Well, you know, really it's never too late to plan. So if you think, well, I'm already a year out from retirement, it's too late for me, it's really not. There's a lot of things that can be done or changed in a year or 5 years or 10 years. But obviously the sooner you start, the better off that you will be.
Yes, absolutely. That's a very good word to end on, Sam, and we appreciate your expertise today, and hopefully that will help all of us get busy starting to look ahead to some wonderful years.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. And to all of you, thanks for joining us. And please remember, it's never too early to start retirement planning, and it's never too late to live and learn.